Hi guys, we like to talk about some pretty expensive gear here on the channel. From time to time, I am a fancy boy after all, but something else this fancy boy likes to talk about is budget gear. Budget gear that can hang with the big boys without spending the big bucks. And I don't know if you can find a better piece of budget gear than what you are looking at right now. Camera, lens, and all, this is less than $400 right now. $398 for this image, which I think is more than acceptable. In fact, let's put it up against the FX30 and a 15mm G lens. The little ZV1F side by side against an FX30. Now, overall, the FX30 has a better image. The camera can do a whole lot more. It will be better in low light. But when you think about all of the money that you are saving, if you just want a nice image with the ZV1F, this can be compelling for many people. It can be a main studio cam like I am using right now. A 20mm lens is great for a studio, and you can lean over and touch it right there and adjust your settings so the camera is nice and close to you while you still have quite a wide field of view. It can be used as a second or a third angle or a top-down angle because it's a tiny, lightweight camera. It can also be an excellent streaming camera. It has HDMI, a micro HDMI in there. It also has a USB-C where you can stream from that, but that is in 720p, so you want to use the HDMI so you can get your full 4K streaming, and then just use a capture card. You can stream all day with this guy. It doesn't overheat on me. And of course, you can also use the camera for what it's designed for, vlogging. You can just take it out in the streets looking at your gorgeous face while you talk your nonsense. I should mention the full retail price according to Sony of this camera is $498 USD, but it is currently, as I'm recording this, on for $398, and Sony often puts this camera at the $398 price point, which makes it very attractive, I think, at that price. Now, as you watch this glorious, entertaining video, I want you to keep an eye on the autofocus. No pun intended. It does have eye detect autofocus, but there are some questions around this camera's autofocus, and we will address them later in the video. But know that I am currently, and for the whole video, using autofocus. Now, with a camera like this, a lot of people say, why don't you just use your phone? And phones can be absolutely great. But number one, this iPhone 16 Pro is way more expensive. I know a lot of people get them with phone plans, so you have it anyway. So let's just leave the price out of it for a minute. For me, filming on your phone a lot when you're trying to do video, I find quite cumbersome. I don't really like the image that comes out of this unless I am using the ProRes RAW, and then the file sizes are really big, and then you have to bring them from the phone into your editing system, and I have to do a lot of tweaking of the colors to get this where I want it. Whereas the ZV1F is a camera designed to be used as a camera. It has removable SD card, so if you run out of space, you just stick another SD card in there. You don't have to get an external hard drive. You can just swap out the battery or use a USB-C power bank to continue to power your camera, or do like I'm doing right now. I have just plugged it straight in to the wall, and now it can just go all day long on its trickle charge. And it's a trickle charge. It won't literally go all day long, but it will go for many hours before you have to swap out the battery. But you know what? Let's go outside and use this camera as it is intended. It is a ZV camera, the vlogging camera after all. Let's go check it out. Now, I think this camera does a fine job at exactly what it is intended to do, which is something like this, vlogging your pretty face. I'm actually using an external microphone right now, and I am using the gyro data to stabilize the footage in post so I can have that gimbal-like footage without a gimbal. Now, you can use the active stabilization and the on-camera microphone, and it'll still work just fine. That will be an easier workflow, so let me show you what that looks like. This is the setting here using active stabilization. The crop is not so bad, but the stabilization itself is nowhere near as good as when you use the gyro data to stabilize it, which is why I like the gyro data to stabilize it. All right, I'm gonna get out of here. Too many people looking at me right now. But what about low light, say you? This is a 1-inch sensor after all, and as you can see, the street lights are now on. It is beyond dusk. It is almost completely dark outside, and I've just put it in intelligent auto to let it do the work for me. We are at ISO 2000. Seems to be exposed pretty well here
in the screen, and I gotta say, as usual, Sony does a good job with low light, even though this is a small 1-inch sensor. You're certainly not gonna get full frame performance out of this guy right here, but this is really not bad for basically the nighttime here in Toronto, Canada.
It comes with a great in-camera microphone that is protected by a little furry Don King wig, whereas if you just take out your phone and you're talking and the wind picks up, then you're going to ruin your audio. It still has beginner-friendly modes like a background defocus button on top and product showcase mode. Product showcase mode on this camera is just a small square in the center, but you just press the trash can and then you will be able to do the showcasing of the products. Now, just like all of my Sony cameras, I bought this myself. I paid full price. I don't get any discounts. Nobody gives me any cameras. That'd be nice if they did, but nobody gives me any cameras. I love using this thing. It is so small and light. I just love taking it around, and the lens, I like that it doesn't go in and out, that it's just fixed to the body. Nice and small, little pancake lens. I did buy this little $5 lens cap though, just so that I could protect the element when I do slip it into a pocket. I also bought a little ND filter for this guy so that when I go out into the sun, I can keep it down at f2 and have a bit of background separation. A variable ND, you know, something like this. This is not the one. This is much bigger than the one for this camera. I will link it all down below, the proper size. And what I like the most about the camera, besides the image quality, size, and weight, is the fact that it's a Sony camera, so I can use all of those Sony picture profiles. You can even use S-Log3 if you want. I generally stay away from that with 8-bit cameras, and this one is being shot on Cine 2 profile right now, but you certainly can use S-Log3 if that is your prerogative. Now, when you are talking about a camera at this price point, of course, you're going to have to accept some major compromises. The first one is that it doesn't have a hot shoe. It's just a cold shoe on top. It doesn't connect to any of the Sony peripherals that use the hot shoe. You can't use a flash if you want to take photos, so it is just a cold shoe, a holder up there. That is all. The second issue I want to address is the implementation of the autofocusing system. This isn't Sony's typical hybrid-based autofocus that has phase detect and contrast-based autofocus together to give you that amazing Sony autofocus that we all know and love. This one is contrast-based only, and if you're like me and you used a lot of Panasonic cameras in the past that had contrast-only based autofocus, you know that can be problematic. But I must say Sony has done a really good job of the autofocus, even though this is contrast only. I still have a box around my eye. As I say, this entire video, everything you've seen is in autofocus, and I don't really see those telltale signs of the contrast-based autofocus where you see the fluttering in the background as it hunts to try to gain focus. Now, perhaps it's just where I'm shooting and how I have my lights set up, but if you do have that issue, you can solve it pretty easily by just switching over to manual focus. What I like to do is let the camera grab focus with the autofocus, then I reach over and switch it to manual focus, or you can use Sony's new Creator app, link that to your phone, and then switch from autofocus to manual focus as you sit in front of the camera, posing your sweet poses. Click manual focus, then you can be guaranteed to get no flutter or hunting. Now, be warned, when you connect the Creators app to the ZV1F via Bluetooth, you will lose your face and eye auto detect. And since you're switching to manual focus anyway, at least that's what I'm doing with it, that is not a big deal. But if you plan to use the app a lot with the camera, when you're in 4K, you will just get zone-based autofocus and you'll lose that eye and face detect. Another drawback to this camera is photos, because it takes JPEG photos only. I am not sure why Sony did this. I do wish it could take raw photos. I know not everyone is going to use this camera for a lot of photos. It is a fixed 20mm full frame equivalent focal length, but still, I would like the option of taking raw photos so I could take them into my editor and do that. It takes nice JPEG photos, but I would definitely like to be able to shoot raw. So suffice it to say, I consider this a video camera only, at least 90% a video camera. Now, the last drawback I will talk about is battery life. If you're going out for a day of shooting, you're definitely going to want to take 3 or 4 of those little batteries. They don't last very long. In the studio, you can just plug it into a power bank or the wall, no big deal. But if you are out and about, then that battery is going to drain really quickly. But I wanted to make this video because I think this is a really underrated camera, not just for vlogging, but for the studio as well. Get a nice little studio shot, another angle, a top down, some streaming setup, your vertical content setup, whatever you want, you can do it with the little ZV1F. You just have to be aware of the compromises, and for not that many dollars, you can get a really great image. Anyway, thanks for watching this. We'll talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.